Welcome, everyone. I'm Alfred Lemwalt Weber, and today I'm with the most extraordinary guest. We've discovered we have so many things in common. Paget Ann of Essendon. It sounds like someone out of this, extraordinary sort of, uh, fifth dimensional meme.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I'm from Essendon in Victoria, Australia.
Yeah.
So I'm Paget Ann of Essendon. I was named after Deborah Paget. My dad was in love with her. So was Deborah Winger's dad, Elvis Presley's first leading lady.
Deborah Paget was
Mhm.
was Elvis Presley's
First leading lady. I think it
first
was
leading
Follow That
lady.
Dream. Yeah.
Oh,
Priscilla
I see.
Presley did her hair like her so that she could catch his eye, and it worked.
Oh, I see. Wow, this is quite a mixture of streams coming in here, and and uh, we are at Paget Ann of Essendon's website, which is pagetannofessendon.com, and we're at Books by Paget Ann. And the first book that we're going to be talking about is called Interdimensional Disturbances Access Denied. And the contents, may I read
Mhm.
the contents? Mandatory vaccinations, 4G, 5G, geoengineering, forced COVID testing, ID 2020 social credit system, disharmony at home, school, or work, alongside attacks from spirits bound to earth, demons, astral snakes, and thought form entities, to name a few, could be disturbances making us feel powerless. Any attack to us physically is a reaction. Okay, that went, whoa. So, could we start there and then move on to the subject of protection and then move on to the healing modalities that you discuss? Acupuncture, Chinese herbal medicine, esoteric acupuncture, essential oils, German auricular medicine, sound therapy, tuning forks, and acutonics.
Yeah.
But let's start with interdimensional disturbances, access denied. Over to you, Paget Ann of Essendon.
Well, an interdimensional disturber can be anybody, even in the 3D. So it can even be that person at work or at home or wherever, at school, who you're having difficulty with, and you just don't know how to be having a harmonious relationship with them. Perhaps you have a past life focus with them, like a past life situation where maybe you did them wrong, and that energy is carrying over, and all that stuff is there. And when you first meet them, and there's like all this stuff, and if you do things like connect from the pinky rose inside you to connect with them, the pinky rose that's inside them, it's not doing a healing on them or anything like that. It's just setting up the intention that this space that I'm having with you is going to be from love. It's going to be from source. So then that person is no longer an interdimensional disturber. It's there. The 3D is nice and peaceful, and you can get by. You can get, on with whatever your interaction is with them. But an interdimensional disturber can also be like the 4G, the 5G, the toxin that they're doing, the juice. It can be the agents of the government and those non-humans who are with them, AI, and I mean all AI, artificial intelligence, alien intelligence, awful individuals, annoying individuals, like all of it, everything that can be creating disharmony and diseasement around us, we can take charge of that and be kind of like saying, no, keep out. So in my book, I spent a full year thinking about what I wanted to write. So it was about 2005. I wrote the first paragraph, which ended up being the introduction, the very first paragraph in the introduction. I wrote the last paragraph, which was the last paragraph of the conclusion. And I thought about the whole book for a year, and then I wrote it. And I mean, I wrote it. I wrote by hand. I didn't, well, I still really don't know how to type. I really don't know what I'm doing, but I sort of peck at the board, And I basically finished the first draft of it, literally cutting and pasting, like on the floor, cutting and like gluing and taping. And I got it all together and I sent it to my sister in another state. And I'm like, could you please type this for me? And so she handed it back to me and she's like, learn to type. So I had this, I think back then it was like a floppy. I think that's what we used in a computer. And so then I just started adding to it, like making each chapter more and more, because I realized, we are genetically modified. I feel that we used to be a physicalish spiritoid, and we have these genes, which are like implants that we pass through the generations, and they create a lot of disharmony and all kinds of stuff for us, and help them to control us a little more, the interdimensional disturbers, the criminals that believe they be, and company. So I started thinking, well, I want to put GMOs in the book a bit. And this is back in like 2007 or so. I added a little bit about GMOs, and I just added a few little things here and there. And then the book got rejected like so many times. One company kept it for a while. It went around the office. They kept it for about 6 months. It kept passing to the next stage and the next stage. But then when it got to the final cut, it didn't make it. So they sent it back. But I do bag on agents of the government. I do bag on the juices. So, I wasn't at all surprised that people didn't necessarily want to go into publishing a book where I'm calling legislators bad guys. And so finally in 2020, I was like, okay, I need to just self-publish this. So I had to go on and learn how to do, how do you format a book? So I went on YouTube and everything and learned how to do that on my Microsoft Word 7. And so got it done, got it out in about October 2020. So right before I published it, I went through it and just added a few little things to make it contemporary, like the wag the dog psyop that we've been experiencing since like March 13th, things like that. I call it the wag the dog psyop because if you see that movie, and then you see what we're living, it's kind of like, oh, yeah. So anyway, so that's what I did. And I was also able to put a little bit in there about, covering this nostril and this mouth kind of stuff, because if you want less attacks to come at you, you can picture that you have that on and just really feel it and live it. And then you're convincing people that you have it on and they won't see that you don't. Now, that's for other people who are not confrontational. I do mention that a little bit in the book. For me, I'm more confrontational. So I'm more the sort that went to Long Beach Airport with this nostril, and this mouth available and bare for the world to see. So they wanted to escort me out of there. And anyway, so, in the book, I mentioned the physicalish spiritoid. That's what I consider ourselves when we were our multi-self, when we were all of these bodies that were just, we look to the next level and we go slower frequency, and we create a new level by our frequency that we're intending to create. So you can have like your astral, which is a higher vibrating body compared to the etheric body, which is like 3.5, and then we get the physicalish spiritoid, which is like third dimension. But it's very different than what we are right now as a genetic human, where I feel we've been tweaked and I feel we've had implants added to us. So here's what I also talk about in my book a little bit. Indigenous basically means no genes. I think the real true indigenous folk of this earth, 3D earth, were those who did not have the implants, the genes, So I think they are the indigenous people that are talked about, those who came really first, before people started getting tweaked. And right now we have a new thing happening. We have the genetic human. We have people who are becoming the light bearer human, the light bearer humans are the ones who are standing in alignment with the sound of self. So another way of saying that is that you're maybe in alignment with your causal body. You're maybe able to have your monadic ray express itself through you. These are a couple of ideas I touch on in the book. And So if you become a light bearer human, you're the one who is not going to have the, toxin. You're the one who is like, you didn't fall for any of this. Like, it's like, you can rise above whatever implants they've given us, because we're just like, whatever, we can see through this. We can rise above it. We can function out there, because we understand AI, artificial intelligence, alien intelligence, awful individuals, annoying individuals. They can't dictate to us how we should be. We know we need to interact with each other. We need to swap microbiome. We know what being a human is, and we know that they have no right to tell us how to not be a human. Well, because they're telling you how to be a human, but they're wrong. And so light bearer humans are ones who are able to hold enough frequency to say, whatever. Like, I had to walk away from my job. I was a sign language interpreter for LAUSD for 28 years. And I said, I am opting out of all of these experiments on humanity. And they're just like, what experiments? And you and I, and we all know experiment is what they say, because they have legislation that says, they have words on paper that says that they can experiment on us, but they know exactly what they're doing. They know, it's not exactly like, oh, let's do this and see what happens. They know what they're doing. But anyway, for outward appearances, it is an experiment on humanity to say, stay 3 to 6 feet away from each other. Stick this swab up your nose to see if you're sick or not. Let me take your temperature every day. Here, cover this nostril, and this mouth simultaneously, because it's the thing to do. Those are presented as experiments on humanity, and I opted out of them, and LAUSD said no. And I said, well, it's not my religion to cover this nostril, and this mouth, to cover my face. It's not my religion. And nope. So I had to leave. So I left because of that. But a whole bunch of people I know are now no longer employed because they will not take the juice. And so these people are light bearer humans. We are ones who are holding enough frequency where we're not in fear. And it's like, no, no. The genetic human, those who are still genetic humans, are they're in a lot of danger, because they could very easily be convinced to go the successive human way, which is the get the imposter ray injected into you, so that you no longer know you're standing in alignment with self, with the sound of self. You won't know your monadic ray exists. You'll die and you'll see this imposter ray, and you'll be like, oh, the light, yay, and you'll be like totally stuck. The successive human, that I think they call them transgender now, and transhumanism now. But when I started writing this a long time ago, I didn't have words like that. I just knew, okay, we're standing at that point again where we have a choice. Just like a long time ago, physicalish, spiritoids had a choice. And so we chose, oh yeah, let's go the genetic human way. Or maybe there were a whole bunch of different things between the physicalish spiritoid and the genetic human. I don't know. But I just know we're morphing again. So we have a choice to go that way, where we're going to be like kind of robotic, because AI will be reading our mind and like telling us what to think, like more than it is now. Or we can go that way. So, these are just some ideas in here that I talk about. I talk about earthbound spirits. I talk about Draco, reptilian. I just talk about things like that, subliminal messages. Like, I even touch on the United States of America military flag, which to me is a subliminal message for war. And I feel that if they had put the other flag out, the one where the vertical lines, the civil flag, that it would have been more a subliminal for peace. So I think they do that intentionally. So I talk about subliminal messages and thought form entities. There's all kinds of thought forms that are discussed out there, because your mind literally creates, and solidifies something. But I'm talking about a thought form entity, which is basically a soulless entity that is controlled by something with a soul, because usually, and also they can get something coming into them and taking over. So there's that. And so then after I'm talking about all of that, I go into how you can recognize that maybe there's something going on. And the best thing to do first is to know yourself, know what foods you eat that irritate you and how that feels, so that you can tell the difference between when you're being attacked or not. And I go into differences with like panic attacks and things like that compared to when you're really experiencing something that is like, wait, something's going on. And so that's all. That's just my little introduction.
Very good. Yeah. So what do you do in life? I mean, are you a healer? Do you offer healing? Do you
Oh,
offer lectures? I mean, how do you carry yourself in this life?
okay. So I used to be a sign language interpreter up until, I had to leave because I wouldn't follow any of their protocol. And plus, critical race theory was coming in. So I probably would have left for that too, by the way. And then, of course, the juice, I would have left for that. I was a sign language interpreter working in LAUSD for 28 years, trying to ground light there. And every single job that I went on as a sign language interpreter, because I worked in multiple school settings in multiple different districts and what have you, I was always trying to ground light there. Meaning I am an acupuncturist. I'm a licensed acupuncturist. I have my small business. I have not been working since 2019 because I left an office and I haven't gotten another one. I have made taking on agents of the government my full-time job, but I spread the word about healing modalities and how to what I do with cell towers, what I do with chemtrails to protect ourselves, things like that. But if you're asking like how am I financially able to like function, it was sign language interpreting.
Yeah,
Mainly.
no. I was just trying to get a concept of what you do. Are you a healer? Are you a speaker? Uh, all of the above?
I would say all of the above, but I feel like I've been hiding for a couple of decades because I felt like I needed to increase my frequency and be stronger and better before I took on the opponent. Because things have happened through my life where um, like for instance, and I just remembered this the other day, quite a few decades ago, I was driving and all of a sudden I went over these train tracks. There were like four of them in a row and I could feel a train. And when I got to the third lot and I'm looking and I know there's a train there and I quickly accelerated and then I put on my brakes because the train is going behind me. I mean, I almost got hit by the thing. And the whole thing felt to me uh like it was an attack on me, like because no bars went down. Like I've driven there a million times and no bars went down, and I was just sort of like, oh, I just saw that as a little like, be careful, because I know what I intend to do. What I intended to do was for this moment right now, what we're living in, I'm going to be one of those many who are going to stop them. That's my intention. So that has always been my intention with this lifetime. You know how like we know that they go in cycles and they start humanity over again, like all the time with whatever they do. And I'm like, enough. So I was sort of hiding, I guess you could call it, even though I've always been very vocal about everything, about healing modalities, about interdimensional disturbances, about things that people just look at me like you're nuts, forever. But I've been hiding because I'm not exactly out there on a talking tour. I'm not, I just did one in October in Gadsden, Alabama. But I mean, my whole life, I've been pretty much just speaking to those people around me and trying to ground light where I am around me. So I haven't become like this great big speaker. I'm a doer. I'm taking on everybody. I've been writing so many letters nonstop for so long. I use the judicial district. If you've never heard of that, everyone, they're everywhere, even in Australia and England, everywhere. There is like this real general post office. And then there's this other post office on top of it. There's like the judicial district, which is kind of like the du jour, the way things go with the flow. And then there's the District of Columbia. And I feel that for Australia too, as well as America. And I don't know how far reaching the District of Columbia is, but we'll just call it that. And it's on top. So when you go into the United States Post Office, the United States Postal Service, you're, paying what you think is money, those little bills, you're paying it and you send your letter. Well, I use my signature and I address it as a dweller, not a resident. I address it as a living mankind, not like the legal fiction. And so I feel like my letter has more power because I'm putting it in the box, knowing that this is like a court, because the post office is like the highest place in the land. And so I have been sending letters to everybody. Back in 2015, I sent a letter to the Pope, and I'm kind of like, hey, you can stop SB 277, the one where they wanted to, juice like all the children, because of a psyop that happened at Disneyland that had nothing to do with schools, yet they implemented, to the CDC schedule, So I wrote to him and I'm like, dude, you could stop this, and I wrote to the Queen and I wrote to all these people and all these judges and all these postal masters and what have you. And I mean, so with everything, whether we're talking about this, whether we're talking about the towers, whether we're talking about like, the 5G, where no matter what, the geoengineering, the smart meters, everything, I've been going after everybody for everything. And then when this Wag the Dog psyop started, I started writing letters to health departments, but I've only gotten one response out. I hear about these people, they get so many responses. I only got one. Mayor Garcetti's legal team admitted that they don't have any access to any natural contagious virus isolate, They said, no, we don't have anything like that, because I wrote to Mayor Garcetti saying, if you're going to implement this, what he's calling the safe pass, then you must have that isolate right at your fingertips. And so I want to see it. And they're like, no, we don't have it. And for those of you who don't know, like if you are in Hollywood and you want to go sit down in Denny's, you can't. You have to, have that. Or if you want to go into McDonald's, you can't. You have to, if you want to just go through.
This is Mayor Garcetti is the mayor is the mayor of Los Angeles,
County, Los Angeles County.
County, okay.
Yeah, I've also written to other mayors because like Lamita has their own, Long Beach has their own.
Well, today is Thursday, March 27th, and what's significant about that is that at the end of last week, the Prime Minister of Britain called an end to practically all COVID measures in England. And so our tribunal met on Tuesday, and we issued a 140-page order which called an end to all COVID measures and 5G worldwide. Yep. So it's all ended worldwide. It's over. It's done with.
Well, that would be nice. For me, I will experience it in my body as done with when I can freely travel without people harassing me, when I can freely go into a bank without them harassing me. I mean, everywhere, it's getting worse and worse.
Yeah. But from your point of view, the United States, under the Act of 1871 and the District of Columbia, is a colony of the United States, of the United Kingdom. Basically, the District of Columbia and the USA Corporation is a contractee of the United Kingdom, and the United Kingdom's chief executive officer, that corporation, had just stated that the pandemic's over. So, yeah. so it should be over. It's just a time lag. It's over for the United States also.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I'm always like, that opponent is a little slippery fish, and quite often what they do is they make their little announcements and they do their little whatevers to get you to drop your guard, and then they do something, and then they get to say, oh, see, everyone has this because we let it go. We said there was nothing, and look what's happened. So
right.
So I just, I'm not stopping what I'm doing, the pressure that I'm applying, until I see and experience liberation. And
right.
And I just don't. I mean,
that's why we issued, after the British Prime Minister stopped all 5G measures, we issued a halt on all 5G measures and on all COVID measures and all 5G installations, because what they have in their back pocket is to assassinate everyone with 5G. Correct?
Correct. And I think they have other weapons too. But yes,
Yeah.
I think extermination and enslavement of those who are left and complete control of those who are left is an agenda.
Yeah.
I just hope that we don't relax and still throw a wrench in the little wheel that's turning for them. You know, I do feel differences every now and then, you know, because I used to have a lot more attack, I guess you could say, coming at me that I felt, and I feel it a lot less. But I have also implemented better protection, and every time something creeps through,
Yeah.
then I increase I fix the protection.
Okay, good. You just said a great word, which we talked about. Let's talk about protection. So tell us about, we just talked about the interdimensional disturbance. Now let's talk about protection. Let's start talking about that.
Okay. So if we start on the physical level, I feel one very important thing to do first for protection is, if you are a citizen of whatever corporation, you know, country where you belong, if you are a citizen, then you need to start doing some work and figuring out how you can align yourself with like the sound of the spirit of what your land really is. So what I mean by that is, in the United States of America, the United States, when you are a U.S. citizen, you are under the 14th Amendment and you are a slave. So you want to rewrite all of that and become a national. So if you want to go down that rabbit hole, I highly recommend Radio Ranch, Roger Sales, and he'll teach you all about how to become a national. So that's the first thing, because as a U.S. citizen, the Patriot Act, it's nasty. And it means that they could just show up at your door and take you away if you're a citizen. So truly, you have absolutely no safety if you're a citizen, in my opinion. So that's like the first step. You want to get your physical body as protected as possible, right? So in the United States of America, I would become an American national, meaning I would write my affidavit to the Secretary of State and And then there's all kinds of rabbit holes that you can go down with that to get freer and freer and freer. Basically, if this is the matrix, to get yourself out of the pod, into the chair, and controlling Mr. Anderson yourself instead of them sucking energy. So that's one step. Another step for the 3D is like, I have things written. I actually brought it here to show you. You can't see it. I have it online at my authenticselfacupuncture.info. It's a thing where I basically have this paper out the back of my house, the front of my house, on top of things like a cabinet or a curio cabinet, because I have been attacked by things that come through the ceiling before. Because they do have that kind of technology where they can take you up through the ceiling, or they can come through, or excuse me, send their weapons through and affect you. So I put these things like this. So, hey, you can read it. And basically, I'll just read the beginning. It just says military, science, government, human, non-human faction, because that's what I call, you know, those departments, like where the black helicopters come from and whatnot. The demonic is what I call them. Nasty, for themselves, service to self, not for, like they have attachments to things, like to an outcome. So a Daman, time traveler. So the military, science, government, human, non-human faction, government intruders, AI, I just explained what that is, independent time travelers, planetary corporations, and I say, please respect biosecurity measures and personal boundaries. This whole thing is basically written as if a physical military kind of person is standing at your door. And so there's things in here related to that, but I also have things in here related to interdimensional disturbers, to any level of the military, science, government, human, non-human faction, because they have weapons that we can't even dream of. So I have all of that here, and I have it stuck like all around. So like just to give you a little bit of understanding of what I mean by this and how it can give you protection is, I mean, do you want to hear a little story about this?
Yeah, come on.
Okay, so a long time ago, well, I guess it wasn't that long. I think it was like December 10th, like 2020 or something. I was still a sign language interpreter. I was having to go on Zoom because, you know, they're all afraid of the COVIDs. So I was feeling really, really good, really confident. I'm about to sit down for this hour stretch where I'm going to be voicing for signers. And voicing is always a little more challenging than just simply interpreting, because when you're doing the actual signing, when you're hearing that person speak, you're getting so much information about the vibe of them and everything. When I'm watching someone, I'm giving what I think I'm seeing with my voice. So it's like a little harder, but I'm feeling good. And I sat down, and all the little, it's like the Brady Bunch, all these little squares are popping up with Zoom, and, all the kids and the teachers. And I'm seeing them signing to each other, like, hi, what's that toy or whatever. Like, they're all like, whatever. And then all of a sudden I saw it again, the exact same conversations. And I examined myself, and I saw that I was feeling horrible. I'm going to do a terrible job. I'm going to be awful. I'm going to be a disgrace. People are going to say such awful stuff about me. I'm the worst sign language interpreter in the world. It was just amazing how I was completely different. So I put my little camera off, made sure I was on mute. I stood up and I took them on. I was like, what the? I go, I have signs on my house. You're not allowed to enter, and you just broke that whole thing. So I demand that we go to court right now. So I think we went to some kind of a court, like on another level, which I also talk about in my book, which is why I know it's there, because I got called into that court because I did something wrong. So now I know it's there. So when they did something to me, I called us to that court, and I said, you need to take everything away that you just did, because you had no permission to come into my house. You had no permission to bring any kind of weapon through here, whole thing. And boom, it was lifted off of me. And I was back to feeling really good and confident. And so I sat down and I did my hour. And then when I got off, I wrote about it. And I was like, wow, because that was like a deja vu. I saw a deja vu. So I was like, wait, what just happened? And so then I examined myself, and I saw how everything was different. So I knew something happened. So, anyway, that is one thing that this does. So every time something gets through, something else, something new, because there are like so many different kinds of interdimensional disturbers and so many different kinds of things that attack us, that I am constantly tweaking this thing. And I have also, my new thing is contracts. So, I was recently hurt by something physically. So I also added to my paper, you know what? If you intend to hurt me, then you have just chosen to enter a contract with me. And this is what the contract is. And basically what the contract is that if you hurt me, then you're entering into the contract that says that it is okay for more disclosure to happen, for less cloaking to happen with you. People are going to see whoever you are more clearly. So if you don't want to be standing there vulnerable with everyone knowing exactly who you are, then don't hurt me, because that's the contract you're entering with me. Now, if I don't get hurt because of me, because I do something in my own little world that protects me, you still had the intention to come at me to hurt me. So you are still entering a contract with me. So that's one of the new things that I added in here because I got hurt. And I also have one, because I'm getting sick of seeing all my friends like Sally and everyone get taken out. Sally L. Cordy was on
Sally.
the
So, my God. Well, then that relates to the tribunal, because Sally, we had our indictment on November 15th, 2020. We issued the indictment, and the trial was set for November 29th, 2020. Both of them were Sundays, and she was assassinated with 5G on the intervening Sunday, November 22nd, 2020. So she could not participate in the trial, and she was the leading judge to stop the vaccinations. Yep. So that is where we connect.
Yes.
You and I, I'm just sitting here representing a tribunal as one of the judges, right? And so, wow, what a connection. Well,
yeah,
I'm talking.
I saw your interview with her one time. I don't know, it was like September or something, 2020. So I said in the comments, "Hey, Sally." So she commented back, but I didn't see it until after she had died. But Sally interviewed me in 2018 because I had sent to her saying, "Hey, I love your shirt. Can I please have a shirt like that?" And
Wow.
it said outlaw vaccines.
Yeah.
And so she said to me, "Sure." And so we talked about how I could get money to her and how she could get the shirt to me and all of that. And at that time, my email would shoot back doctor, because I have a PhD in parapsychic sciences, which is like,
Yeah.
aliens, angels, and all that stuff. So she was like, "What are you a doctor in?" And I said, "Well, I am an acupuncturist, but I'm not a doctor in that. I have a PhD in, it's like a theological degree, but it's parapsychic sciences." And she
But
was
I mean, what from what institution?
the American Institute of Holistic. The Holistic Institute of, oh God, I can't even remember, because they went away in 2017. They went defunct. They somebody took off with all their money, and
Oh,
then they changed hands for a little while, but it didn't work. They lost their accreditation around 2013. I got
whoa.
mine in 2007. Yeah, they were still accredited when I got it. Yeah, I had been there. It was in Birmingham, Alabama, but somebody came in and they were.
They were infiltrated. However,
Yes.
by my experience, see, because you're talking and what you've been talking about in terms of protection, it seems to me that you're carrying out, just as your book talks about interdimensional interference, your next book should be called Interdimensional Protection, because you're carrying out interdimensional protection, right? And so your institute probably empowered you to carry out interdimensional protection, and that's probably why they infiltrated it
Yeah.
and de-credentialed it. So talk to us about how you carry out interdimensional protection. Tell us all the secrets.
Well, it's just everything. I mean, like in my book, I talk about how you can get a hold of any product that resonates with you. So I use these codes, like the Goddess Code and other codes, where I get really in tune with them, and then I can use them even when I don't have them. So the bottom line is, the more that you're standing in alignment with the sound of self, which is, I think the equivalent to that is like being in contact with your causal body. I think that's what that is when I say that, because I can just feel it. I felt it for a very, very, very long time, and that's what it feels like to me. But it's, it's any tools. Like I use biogenesis tools, like the bio oscillator, and I talk about all that in my book. I've used all kinds of stuff. But number one is, you want to get in touch with the traumas that are within you. So whether that means you go to a chiropractor who does that imaginary recall technique, where they can touch you and help you go back to a situation, and they're bringing energy into your body and it puts it in alignment. Whether you go to German auricular medicine, which is where they use needles on the ear, but it's different compared to what I learned in Chinese medical school. In Chinese medical school, someone comes in with a problem and you just say, "Oh, like my elbow's hurting." And so someone goes, "Oh, the right or left elbow? Oh, it's your right elbow. Okay, I'll put a needle in there." And that's that. But this isn't what German auricular medicine is. German auricular medicine is the little upside down body that's in your ear, and all those little points communicate with your brain, and they can go back and rewrite a trauma so that you're no longer carrying it with you. And there's certain ways to get your ear into different levels so that you're addressing dental problems, and toxins, psychological, like all kinds of layers. And that point for your elbow is not going to be active unless it's the right point that you're supposed to use. So that's a whole thing. It's called German auricular medicine. It's the Canadian Institute, I believe, Canadian Institute of German auricular medicine, where I learned it, Dave Mabry and those people. And it's excellent. So all I'm saying is, whatever you can do that gets you in tune with yourself and in charge of yourself, that is like number one for protection, because you have to know inside of yourself how something feels. Like Okay, so this is also another form of protection. Maybe it is right and true and correct that you should go and do this thing because you are right. Go and do that thing. But you know you're going to be tickling the belly of a dinosaur or a dragon or something, and just all this stuff is going to come at you, and you may not be of a frequency to stand up to that, and you could end up dead. So do you want to be alive or do you want to be right? So what that it's right, that you're in the right, that you should go do that. Listen to yourself, because if you're not of a frequency to stand up to that opponent, don't do it. So it's being able to know who you are and when you're ready. And okay, so I'll just digress again just to tell you this. Recently, okay, I've been having afternoon tea parties at my house since May 2020 because we were told not to socialize. And I'm like, well, I don't know who you are, but I'm a human and I know how to be a human. So shut up. So I was having people over at my house, and in October, I was getting ready to fly because I was going to go and speak in Gadsden, Alabama, which I did do. And they're all talking about, all these pilots that kept on having their issues because they had the juice, and then they're like dying and all this. And so they're like, oh no, people shouldn't fly. And I'm just like, nobody has permission to kill me. So no pilot has permission to kill me. If a pilot chooses to go and do that and they choose to die because they choose to get all involved in that scene, that has nothing to do with me. If I am a passenger on their plane, then I'm going to put myself in a Merkaba. I'm going to spin one, what is it? It's like a triangular pyramid, one direction and the other one the other way. I don't even know if that's true, but that's what I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to put that Merkaba that I'm standing inside, I'm going to put that in a ball. And this ball is going to be squishy so that it'll bounce if I fall out of that plane, and it's going to be fireproof, and I am going to be fine because no one has permission to take my life. Right. So that's what I did. I show up at the airport and the guy's like, I'm going to escort you out of here. You better put, you better, or I'm going to escort you out of here. And I'm like, you have no authority over me. And that just totally set this little police officer off. And he came at me, and I tell you, he bounced off my little ball that I had set up. I watched him bounce. He came at me like this to grab me, I think. And he went off to his right, which was my left. And he was so stunned. He was just, that I finally was like, you know what? I could see that I kind of red pilled him because he didn't know what happened. And I was like, okay, I'll put a cloth thing on just to go through here. And then when I got through, I could take it off, protection is just so much more. The reason I'm purposely not talking about what other people talk about, because about all that stuff. There's tons of protection out there that we can do. We can get the garments and all of that. But another thing is the violet cubes of light. So what I do on cell towers, on all of the geoengineering that I see happening at my house, and everywhere I go, you see violet coming down like this. You see it coming forward like this, and you see it going this way like this. Cubes, violet cubes of light. The stuff that is inside those cubes, I ask it to turn into blessings for all life streams. So as it's falling down, it comes to us completely different. It comes to us as blessings, as strength, as whatever vocabulary word you want to give it, as love, as light, as being in alignment with the sound of self, whatever your vocabulary is. So recently there was somebody who was standing across from me, and something jumped in that person, right then and there. I'm a full sensory feeler. I'm not a seer. Sometimes I see, but I felt it, and it was like, whoa. So all I did was my mom was standing on my right. So I put the violet cubes of light just between us, because all I'm saying is, I'm not trying to do a healing on this person or anything. I'm not going against their will or anything, but something has coming off of that person now, and I want it to switch to blessings and everything before it gets to my mom and me. And we all know when we're standing this closely, our multi-selves, our auras are all and I do talk about auras in my book too, by the way, but they're all intermingling and everything already. So I just wanted to do that by way of protection. This person looked at herself in the mirror, and she was like, oh, I see. I never knew I looked so much like my mom. And I was like, oh, her mom is visiting her. Her mom had died a while ago. I was like, oh, her mom is visiting her. But still, even if they had a loving relationship, something did not feel right to me. You know, I'm still going to set up protection for myself and for my mom. Like whatever's coming at us, I'm going to make sure it's clean before it gets to us. So that's what protection is. It's like, for number one, it's being aware. It's just being aware. Just know if something just suddenly changed, like it's not right. I've been at these afternoon teas where the man to my left and I both feel something just suddenly showed up over there. And it's just kind of like, we'll look at each other and it's like, and then I'm like, who is that? Because I have all this protection in my house. Who is that? Who got in? Like, what do I need to go and write down now? You know, like, it's like, you can't ever think that you're done. You can't ever think that you're safe. You know, I mean, because we're here in a battlefield. This is a battlefield. You know, Earth 3D is a battlefield right now. Even if you have your moments of 5D experience, which I have had, even though I've had my 4D experiences, this is still a battlefield. And those of us who are light bearer humans, we're the ones who are here to say, enough, done. You guys have been doing this long enough, game over. And I feel like this piece of paper that you can make for yourself and keep writing it and keep editing it and whatnot, it does stand as protection, because it's like, you know, because everything they do is contracts. The Bivens Act, I talk about that a little bit in my book. There are certain agents of the government where you can straight out ask them a question and they can lie once, twice, 3 times. You ask them that 4th time and they tell you the truth. I don't know why. It's the craziest thing, but they do. They'll tell you the truth. So I had a mind-controlled slave as a patient once, and I had all kinds of adventures with that, and it's in my book. But he was going to come to my home office, and I had this horrible feeling like, do not let this into your home. And so in my mind, I called him back and talked to him, even though I didn't know what he looked like yet. And I asked him a question. I can't remember what it is. It's in my book, but it's something like, you know, are you controlled by an agent of the government or something like that? And he was like this every time I asked. And then by that 4th time, it's like his head shook and it went into a yes. And I was like, okay, we're going to meet somewhere else. So it's just being aware, you know, and don't be afraid of like hurting people's feelings. You've got to protect yourself. You can't run around worrying what they're going to think of you or anything like that, you know. So anyway, is that good for protection?
Yeah. So actually, you are walking the land as a living person, basically.
Yep. My goal. Yeah. Roger Sales says that this is heaven under God. Okay. And I'm not religious. I'm more spiritual. I'm more under universal law, natural law. So for me, it's that just simply, there are no boundaries. And when I get that document that gets everybody to respond to that, where they recognize that I am living man and I am walking and I am allowed to walk, I am traveling, and you leave me alone, then I will know I finally arrived at the place where in my heart I already am. But, you know, trying to get people to understand, you have no authority over me. You have no right to tell me I have to cover this nostril, and this mouth. I am human. You know, I don't know what you are, but I breathe air. And that's what my experience is here. That's why I'm here. I'm here on 3D Earth for this experience. Well, and to take them on too.
Yeah. Now, also, I'm just going to your Paget and of Essendon.com, and also you talk about healing modalities that you go into. Does that tie into this?
Yes, in my book, I also talk about them. Like acutonics is tuning fork therapy. There's two women who made their own forks a long time ago. I mean, it was like 2000 or something. They were one of the first they were the first that I had heard of getting into the whole tuning fork thing. They have tuning forks that are the sound of earth turning. So it's 24-hour cycle sound. The moon's cycle sounds, Venus, Mars, like everything. Chiron.
Venus.
Yeah, and Chiron. Yeah, and Venus is very gentle. Venus feels very nice. So there's ways to integrate acupuncture with acutonics. For instance, if you have a point on the back and a point on the front, you can play with the forks, because we look at the back like it's masculine and the front like it's feminine, and the Venus fork is feminine and the Mars fork is masculine. So you could put Mars on a point in your back and Venus on a point in your front that are opposite each other, or even on your arm. This is masculine, this is feminine. So you could do these 2 points, or you can play with them and switch them and put the feminine on the masculine point and the masculine on the feminine point. So you can like play around like that. And then there's like so many other things you can do with it. There's like a whole, it's just through the roof. I experienced I went to Portland, Oregon in 2003 to get certified in Acutonics 1 by Cat Lyons. And while we were there, we were not only learning about acutonics and everything that we can do for our body. And where they're really good is if you're really, really deficient, like someone who's hemorrhaged, pneumonia, things like this that make you extremely deficient. In my experience, when you use acupuncture on a truly deficient person, you can suck all their chi and just deplete them even more. But you do something like acutonics, you're giving them energy and they can get revived. And it's just amazing. So I was in Portland, Oregon, and I was experiencing things like a guy had, it's called a didgeridoo from what we know it as. I put the things on my head and the thing was like connected to the didgeridoo, and you just feel the sound like, whoa, it was like a whole amazing experience. I learned how to do Tibetan bowls, cymbals, bells, like everything. And I left that workshop clairaudient, and it lasted for over 24 hours. I could hear a little bit what people were thinking, but I'm very ethical. And I think I was putting up a shield about that because that's not my business. But I could look at something like on the airplane, I was looking at the what's it called? The tray, and I could hear it. I could hear it. Like I just looked at it, and I could look at something and I could hear it. I could look at like a clock and I could hear it, a cup, and they all had a different sound. I was like totally clairaudient, and I'm not, but that was just how I left that workshop. It was amazing. I experienced bilocating in a really fun way. And I talk about that on the very back of the book. I do a little italics, like a little something that happened to me in 2003 kind of thing. I felt like the ingredients in a straw going through a straw. And I went, and I think I saw Mount Hood. I think that's where I went. But at the same time, I was the straw, and I could hear everything going on in the room, and I could feel my body, and I was aware of my body, but I was aware of being the ingredients in the straw and where I went. So I was seeing something and I was hearing something, and it was really cool. All of that happened at my Acutonics training, my first one. Or no, maybe that was Acutonics 2. I think I did the first one in LA. So that's just one modality.
Right. So what you're doing is incorporating all of this experience, but it becomes part of your real being.
Yep.
And
it was part of my real being first, but now I'm conscious of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now I do a similar thing with say law. See, my initials are LALW, and you transpose that, and it's LAW, and it's a tribunal law.
Huh.
And you don't break the law, you break yourselves against the law. So when you're in a tribunal of conscience, applying natural and common law. Natural law is like universal law. Then people who go and, they are breaking themselves against the law.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a very similar ground of being that you. Now, I'm going to ask you something very special, because I've always wondered about this, because they're so like emotive. Could you give us a really little simple signing lesson, like a really simple one?
Sure. Okay. So what I tell the children is, first I have them copy me. So I don't know how everything looks to everyone, but when I'm standing in front of them, I'm like, okay, this is my right hand. So you raise your left hand. So I have them do like the opposite of what I do. And if I go over this way, or I go over this way, or whatever. And then I say, so if I say true, and then they're all doing true, like opposite me. So we all like, just do opposite. But basically, this is stop. So if you want somebody to stop, you go stop.
So it's like
Stop.
stop.
Yeah. And your expression can show that like more, because are you just saying stop, or
Yeah.
are you like stop?
Stop.
Yeah. So stop.
Stop.
Yeah. And then start is start. So you
Start.
have your 5 fingers.
So your right fingers.
You're putting it between your index and your middle.
That's start.
And you just turn. You turn.
Start.
Start. So that's start. That's stop.
Stop.
Yeah. And this is drink, which is real simple.
Drink.
Drink. And we have a joke, because this is milk.
Milk.
So this is pasteurized milk. Ha 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 ha. Get it? Because pasteurized.
Pasteurized. But
you don't ever want to drink, but
but I mean, is that a joke, or is that
it's a joke?
It's a joke.
It's a joke.
Oh, I see now.
I mean, well, most deaf people I know haven't even gotten into the whole raw and pasteurized. So it really is just a joke, because to them, all milk is pasteurized, Oh,
okay. Now, what is the origin of sign language?
Oh my goodness. It goes.
Right. I mean, yeah.
I mean, you could go to the natives. Do you know that when I first came to America, the only book I would check out of the library until they refused to let me have it anymore, and I only recently bought it for myself, finally, Indian Sign Language, which was the Plains Sign Language. So just to tell you, they used to do this for like you're here, because this is a person sitting in the circle for like the council. We do like here, like you're here, but they would do this. Their absent is this, and then like that. I think this might mean no for them. So it's like they're absent. Whereas for us, you're absent. So, I mean, the origins of this go way, way back, because all of the Plains natives, for example, knew how to speak to each other with sign language. Like, hey, yeah, it's too windy and cold and rainy and snowy. Well, we're going to come and kill you in the spring. Okay, good. Bye. Like they could communicate with each other, even though their language that they spoke was different. They had similar sign language that they could communicate with each other, at least on a rudimentary level. So, I mean, it goes way back. But oh my gosh, I haven't like thought about this for so many decades. I've been in this since like 80 something. But I know that French Sign Language there was like something with the French Sign Language, and Alexander Graham Bell, I think, did something with it. But it's really been so long since I looked at the origins of that. I know that it's unfortunately gone through a lot of things. Like in some countries, they say it's illegal for you to use your hands. That we've gone through those kind of things. Like, how could you make communication illegal? But of course look at them now, how many times have I been in Facebook jail? Communication is still being made illegal. But, so everything about it has gone through phases, but I have met far too many deaf people who can read lips excellently because they were punished every time they used their hands. And that's just so sad.
Right.
know, it's like, it's great that you can read lips, that's great, but it's just so sad. I know too many people who were punished for using their hands. But I can tell you that in Australia it's completely different. In England and Australia, they're very similar, like the A-E-I-O-U, whereas for us in the United States it's A-E-I-O-U. So
Whoa.
yeah, I was on a train in England, I don't know, a long time ago, like 87 or something. And I was talking to a deaf man where we were writing on our palm so that he could teach me his language and I was teaching him mine. And he was making fun of some of our signs because they did farmer like that and we did farmer. And he's like, like making fun of us. But something happened on our train. Something happened, like we had to get off the train, so I was able to communicate with him with what I learned, because
Right.
I learned it just in time to get this announcement and be able to tell him what's going on. So it was really cool.
Well, do you think that your experience as a signer, in a way, because you were using your body to move, you were using your body kinetically, but also symbolically, but also actually, and part of your soul, you're putting your soul in your communication. And actually, what you're saying, I think, is inject your soul into what you're doing, and that's part of the protection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It seems like there's a real connection there.
Yeah, there's three things I think interpreting did. One is I was always at the front of whatever, the church, the school, the meeting, the AA meeting, the cholesterol meeting. I mean, whatever. I've interpreted so many things. I was always at the front with thousands of people staring at me. So it did something about that. But I've never had a problem with being in front of people, but it's certainly very comfortable for me. It did help me with interpreting. So this kind of interpreting, this eye like this means like when you're standing looking at a painting and you're interpreting what that painting means to you. Well, a sign language interpreter is not just interpreting where she's moving her hands or he's moving his hands or voicing. It's interpreting the message, what it meant to me, like what I'm interpreting that person as meaning and saying, like their affect, like everything. But not only that, the third thing is it gets your brain to work in a different way simultaneously with your brain working in another different way. So you're looking at a whole chunk of information that's coming at you in a foreign language. You see this whole chunk. You're turning it around in your head to English. And then when you're finally voicing it in English, you're looking at the second chunk of information coming at you. Your mind is changing it around to English, and you're voicing that while you're looking at the next. So I actually know some people who have had strokes and who have gone through the sign language interpreting program just to heal because their brain has to work. So now I can do multiple things very easily. Like I cell tower after cell tower after cell tower now. There's so many of them. And I'm doing my violet cubes of light on every single one of them. It doesn't matter what else I'm doing. My brain can do that. I can do it while I'm speaking. I can, do it while I'm traveling in an automobile, just anything.
Right. Okay. So now I'm going to ask you this. What do you want people to do with you or about you? Like, do you want them to buy your book? Do you want them to do things with you? Do you want them to go to your website? What do you want them to do?
My website is mainly there just as a resource. I put some books up because some people maybe haven't heard of them. To get in touch with me, it's the number one reason it's there. You could just go into the contact us and you can find me and talk to me, say hi. Yes, I would love for you to purchase my book because I wrote it for you. I wrote it for humanity because so many of us, we've heard what the aura is. We've heard what chakras are, and I give my take on what they are from what I've experienced and what I've learned and whatnot. I give you ideas about, like, I know I only talk about a little small portion of what's out there as far as interdimensional disturbers go. Like, I don't talk about the archons, but I talk about the Draco. So I give you one idea because some people are like, what? There's what? what? You know, like they don't know, like they don't know anything, you know? So it's like, but I feel like, you know, although my book is a little bit of a struggle for people who are overwhelmed by how much information I give them, for other people, it might be like, wow, I'm with you. I know about all this, but I never thought of it from that point of view. So yeah, sure. I would love you to join me in doing violet cubes of light on geoengineering, on cell towers. And in my book, I talk about how I stopped a cell tower, and I tell you how I used violet cubes of light with that. You know, I would love you to join me, which is a whole other topic, which maybe we will do someday. I want humanity to stand up for humanity. So I want you to take off the thing. If you really believe that it does something positive for you, then I want you to go and read Beecham books, you know, Antoine Beecham. I want you to watch Augenis von der Planet's videos, see what virology and germ theory really were, because they are subliminals. And I talk about that in here too. You know, I would love you to, you know, possibly give my point of view an opportunity as a tool in your, you know, toolbox of how you take on, you know, our opponent. I write tons of letters to, you know, health department people and, oh God, everybody. And I do it through the judicial district. I do it, you know, registered mail with my signature, with them stamping the letter. I make it the court. I'm actually reading a lot of common law books because I'm taking them on in that way. So, you know, no matter where you start, I would love you to give my ideas, you know, some time and be like, wow, yeah. Like, so if you go to pagetannofessendon.com and you look at books by Paget and you go and you click on buy, if you scroll down, there will be a little bit of information about what's in the book. Does it resonate with you? If it resonates with you, I would really love you to purchase it, read it. After you've read it, go over to Amazon. I never tell people to buy it over there because I don't support them. Because, you know, they went after all the books on, you know, the juice. They went on after all those books around 2017. And so since about 2017, I try not to support them as much as I can. But how you can help me is if you go to Amazon to leave a review, if I can get like 100, then my book starts getting some notoriety. So that's where you can help me, but you don't have to purchase it there. It's everywhere. It's at Barnes and Noble. I understand it's at Target. It might be at Thrift, you know, it's everywhere. But yeah, just read about the thing and see if it resonates with you. See if, you know, because all of us know, like when a tuning fork is struck, if a tuning fork is inside us, it will start ringing too. So if anything I have said today, you know, you see it as capital T truth and it rings with you, then I think you will really like my book. So, and I would love to share it with you. These are my ideas. I mean, it's like so raw. My personal experiences are in there, my mistakes, my successes. So, you know, anyway.
Well, this has been an extraordinary introduction to your work, and we'd like to invite you back, you know, maybe a few months from now or a half year from now, so that you can tell us what has changed.
Yeah, hopefully I've had many letters back from these agents of the government to whom I'm writing. So yes, and there's a couple of other things I'm seeking to do. I'm seeking to get a new automobile where I keep the manufacturer's statement of origin. I'm planning on writing a letter and getting rid of my driver's license and ending that. And so, yeah, I hopefully will have a whole new chapter to tell you about.
Yeah, good. So as you get more and more milestones, you know, you'll be keeping a record. So when you feel that you have like a quantum of milestones that you want to share, be in contact with us, and then we can do this again so you can share it with our audience. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I see my address there. My email is lightbearer@pagetannofessendon.com. But because that's such a mouthful, it's like easy if you just go to pagetannofessendon.com and then go down to the contact us. But yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
good.
you so much, Alfred. I wanted to meet you so badly.
Oh, well, it happened, and it was through a mutual friend, Gary Peter Carlson, and this is so great.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Totally. Okay, so thank you, everybody. People in the chat have been very, very active. Danny Mulcahy says, "Hi, Alfred. We'll take it. It looks like we're going to get through this process." Well, it looks like it, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, humanity, go,
Yeah, good, good. Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having
And
me. Bye,
yeah,
everyone.
totally.